Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus community was Top Gear Challenge Cars. The first race was at the Hockenheim Short Circuit. I've said many times before, this track often produces some really rather good racing. Now, as far as the cars go, they don't have to be, I didn't say they have to be painted as the Top Gear cars. Some are, some aren't. My Porsche is around somewhere. You'll see it isn't. I did that just purely so I'd recognise it when it came to the video. Husky was driving the Volvo 850R that you see in the lead at the moment. I'm not quite sure what the 242 Turbo is from, but never mind. As we come into sort of the second part of the lap, the Golf is a little bit wide, the Volvo is up the inside, can't quite get past. There's two MX-5s in the same livery, is all very confusing. Back there, they're all squabbling over position. There was a little bit of lag on the first corner, I think you may have seen. So the field did kind of get split up in two a little bit. I also had a bit of a dive. Well, I didn't mean to have a dive. I outbraked myself into the back of a Fiat, which is just about sort of caught in the background as the lead group of cars all file through. The Golf had made a lot of ground on the Volvo in the last few corners, which is, yeah, the Golf was pretty good through the corners. A sort of a lap in, and the field did start to spread out a little bit. MX-5, an MR2, and an old Jaguar. I was a little bit behind this, having waited for the Fiat. We're all battling over the midfield position. The MR2 just got it a little bit wrong, had a wheel out on the grass, couldn't get his car stopped, and the Jaguar's on the inside for the next corner. Scary corner, that one. It's good fun. I like that corner. There's all sorts of overtaking going on in front of us. Everybody is pretty much too wide through this hairpin. The MR2 was trying to go around the outside, but that's pretty damn tough to do. The Mark II Golf had been held up by Husky for a couple of laps. However, after going around the outside of the final two corners, he would eventually get into the lead. For me, that's going to get overtake of the evening. That is mighty hard to do. Getting around there, haven't seen that done, I don't think, certainly not for a while. I go around the outside of somebody through there and he gets in front by the first corner. Yeah, that's a pretty damn tough place to overtake, especially going around the outside of a huge Volvo. The 850Rs aren't small cars. The other Volvo was also very, very quick at this stage. It's right on the back of Husky's vehicle as they go down the back straight. Just a matter of who's got the better straight line speed. These two were very, very evenly matched on that run. There's a little bit of a bump. It's fine. They're Volvos. They can deal with it. The MX-5s are side by side, which is always a bit scary. If you go side by side into this section, one of them got a big slide on, couldn't quite control it, ending up across the dirt. Husky then outbrakes himself into the hairpin. The other Volvo is having a look at the inside, but can't really do very much about that. I was catching up to the back of this group in my Porsche. I was stuck trying to get past an MR2 as we come into the final corner. My favourite overtaking spot on this track is having a dive up the inside here. The MR2 is clever though, and as I run a little bit wide on the exit, he dives back up the inside of me. There's a bit of a sort of a double cutback, if that's a thing going on here, as I get on the inside on the run to the main straight. My Porsche, as often I build my cars, Porsche had some straight line speed to it, meaning that I could get the move done before the first corner. We both run a bit wide, just a little bit, in the first corner. MR2's trying to look around the outside, then swaps to a little bit of a cutback, a little bit of a bump. I just about get away with it, ran a little bit wide on the exit of that corner there, and then it comes the speed of the Porsche. Porsche was actually a really good car. I liked my 944. Has a lot of straight line speed. Is a little bit of a handful through the corners. Not quite the best brakes, hence why you see me running a bit wide in the first corner a few times. Yeah, the brakes weren't quite there, but still a pretty damn good car overall. This front bunch of vehicles stayed pretty close for the early parts of this race, or for most of the race in fact. Then there is a weird lag spike. Now, as all of the cars on the screen currently were all jumping over the place, it was my internet that was at fault. Unfortunately, I was killed in that the MX-5 that was in front of me lagged backwards, destroyed quite a bit of my Porsche, and I had to go to the pits with a destroyed steering basically. The MX-5 though is right on the back of the Jaguar as they come into the sort of the fast, the twisty section through here. MX-5 can't quite get up far enough alongside. And then it's all about your straight line speed and your acceleration up towards the hairpin. Every corner on here pretty much is a good overtaking opportunity. That's why I love this track, and that's why we often get lots of good racing. The Jaguar looks like it's got the job done. He just understeered off, tried to take a bit too much speed there on the exit, allowing the MX-5 to get past. This was further back. As I said at the start, there was a bit of laggy incidences going on. I'm not entirely sure what happened. So a few cars did have to go through pit lane and did fall back quite a way. I think this is the battle for 10th between a Fiat Coupe. I'm glad to see a Fiat. There's still some lag going on. I don't know what's going on with the servers the last few weeks. I'm glad to see a Fiat turn up to this. I think these are excellent cars. Really very good handling. I was very tempted to drive one of these. It was a tough choice between the Fiat and the Porsche in the end. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that was going on. It is not much fun. The Fiat just didn't quite have the straight line speed, and as they run onto the front straight, the Fiesta has got a little bit of a gap at the front, and having done that, quite frankly, impressive overtake around Husky. The Golf vanished into the distance as a big slide coming into the hairpin. It wasn't as big as some of the victories we've seen in these versus the community. You can still see the top 4 or 5 within camera shot. But yeah, the Golf was going to take the win. Husky managed to shake off the Volvo, while the Volvo, the 242, was under considerable pressure for the final couple of laps from the Jaguar, but the Jag couldn't find a way past. In the end, I ended up in 10th or 11th place. I'm not entirely sure, as there's a celebratory slide from the Golf with my rather broken Porsche, which is a shame. The Porsche was pretty good at this track. It liked this track. We move on to the second race at the Camino Viejo circuit. I haven't used this one for a while, so I thought I'd give it a go. I quite like this track as well. As we come into the first corner, chaos erupts, and somehow I survive. I'm still not quite sure how I got through all of that. Little bit of luck involved in that one, if I'm honest. I then also avoid a Camaro that had coming together with the wall, and in all of that I went from 15th to 4th by the sort of second or third corner, which I'm pretty pleased with that. It was a chaotic start. It wasn't really anybody's fault. There was a little bit of a bump between a couple of the Sierras, and because of the sort of the speed and the width of that first corner, everybody was too wide, and it's a pretty fast corner. Yeah, everybody just ran out of space, and there was a huge pileup. One of the bigger crashes we've had in versus the community. Husky was involved, although didn't suffer major damage. He was just sort of caught up in trying to avoid it, and now had to work his way through the field, going around the outside of a Sierra. I'm not quite sure what you would call that corner. It's a pretty scary one though, especially in B-class cars, because they're at the level where a really good handling one, you might be able to take it flat out. It's always just a little bit risky as how much speed you take it through. Yeah, it's a tough corner to get an overtaking manoeuvres done anyway. Husky's trying to find his way past a Golf, a very fast Golf in a straight line. That one is Husky's on the outside for the first corner. The Sierra's on the inside. The Golf is sliding. There's a Kia Ceed getting involved as well. It's all a little bit close as they run down towards the hairpin. Yeah, Camino's a tough track to race on. It's very bumpy, very fast. Can be a little bit of a pain overtaking. Huskies ended up out very wide. You've also got very little runoff at a lot of the corners. If you make a mistake, you're probably going to go in the wall somewhere. I like the challenge of this track, but yeah, can be a little bit tricky on the racing front. A Fiat Coupe was also involved in the first corner pile-up and was making his way through the field. I'm not sure what's going on with the smoky air. I've said this a few times before. Occasionally Forza replays get a little bit confused. I don't think the Fiat had this heavier engine damage. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. The telemetry can get a little bit wonky on them. Either way, the Fiat was making progress. Tries going around the outside of the Golf. Can't quite get his car into that space. Then you've got the drag race up the hill. Everybody does very well to avoid Husky's car. He had a coming together with somebody and dropped back a little bit. Yeah, this hill, you want a high-powered car for this hill. It is a very steep hill, and if you're a bit underpowered, you really notice it. It's a good overtake from the Fiat though to go around the outside of the Golf at the top of the hill, especially when you've got a very slidey Golf in front of you. It's always a bit scary going around the outside there. This group continued arguing for quite a lot of the early parts of this race. They changed which order they were in. They all carried on arguing. This time the Fiat Coupe's going around the outside of a Sierra, and they've got the overtaking manoeuvre done before they ever really got to the corners. An MR2 trying to go around the outside of Husky a little bit further back, doesn't quite get away with it. There's a big train of cars here. I'm not sure quite what I think it's fifth is at the front of this group. Yeah, I was surprised how big a train there was, especially considering there was a huge pile-up. Normally it ends up a lot more sort of split up than this. The Fiat tries to go around the outside of another Golf, can't quite get that manoeuvre done. The Sierra is now closed right up to the back of them. Husky's got the best run of the lot, and it's in 2x2 as they go into the very fast sort of S-bends. Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't in that. That's a scary sight to see. Yeah, doing that is pretty damn scary. Husky's right on the back of the Golf. The Fiat's got past the Sierras, sort of lost out of this one, having got passed by Husky, run into the final corner. Husky's at the inside of the Golf. The Golf runs a little bit wide. The Sierra's sideways. Husky's on the grass. The Sierra's now on the outside of the Golf. Can just about get it done before they get to the first corner. There was plenty going on back here. Even further back, I think this is for 10th or 11th place, there was a scuffle between a Volvo and a Camaro. As I said at the start, or as you saw at the start, sorry, there was a pretty big crash, and while the field did remain fairly close together within the top 10 further back, there were a few cars that suffered a bit heavier damage, had to tour the pit lane, and then they did get a little bit spread out. The Camaro here was the faster of the two cars in a straight line. The Volvo much better through the corners. Camino's a bit of a funny track building a car for. It's always tough if you know that you're going to run at Camino building a car here, as there are lots of straights, there are lots of fast corners, so you kind of want a car that's good overall, really, with this track. The 850Rs are a pretty good choice actually in B class. The Camaro just couldn't get stopped into the final corner, giving the Volvo the position. The field did calm down a little bit towards the end. It is spread out a little bit more, as the Sierra was at the back trying to get past. A Mitsubishi Starion has a dive into the final corner, can't quite get his car stopped, and the Starion manages to do a cutback. The Starion here is the better handling of the two cars. Sierra's got the better acceleration and the better straight line speed, trying to go around the outside of the first corner. You're not really going to do that when you're in the car with the less grip. That rarely works. The best chance the Sierra has is to have a dive into the hairpin. However, he's too far back this time round. While it is a fairly tight corner, it's not got the biggest braking zone of all, meaning that, yes, overtaking is perfectly possible there, but it's not the easiest of opportunities. At the front, however, I had a very boring and very lonely race. After avoiding the absolutely mental opening lap, I had got to the lead and just driven away from everybody. I had a huge lead in this race because everybody else was squabbling, and some of the faster cars were further back in the pack, had to work their way through. So yeah, I won by, I think it was like 1,600, 1,700 feet. My Porsche was, again, really rather good here. This little battle, though, carried on for the rest of the race, for the last couple of laps. In the end, Husky actually came second, getting past the Fiat. This is the battle for fourth, I think it was. The Sierra's up the inside again at the final corner. This isn't a replay, this is the next lap. And again, the Starion does the cutback. However, this time the Sierra's got a much better run, and they cross the line remarkably close. It was a very close finish between those two cars. We've got a photo finish again. I quite like these. In the end, it was the Sierra that got the position by a splitter. Not quite, but yeah, that's a pretty damn close finish. Maybe not quite as close as the Subarus, but yeah, that's pretty damn close. In the end, it came down to just that extra acceleration that the Sierra had out of that final corner. The Starion did pretty much everything he could to just keep that position and couldn't quite do it. Our third and final race was at the Twin Ring Monteghi East circuit. Don't go four wide into the first corner. This is always scary. I luckily had enough acceleration to get away from that. However, the Beetle was even faster than me, which means that we were kind of going a bit four wide. It was rather scary. I got a bit... Yeah, I may have backed out of that. Things all went a little bit wrong as Camaro, I think that is, sort of slightly moved across in front of me. Yeah, Camaro ended up in the wall. I ended up back in the middle, or sort of in the back of the pack, trying to avoid everything. There was chaos again through this section. As you can see, I'm trying to weave my way through. I don't know. It was another busy, scary race for me at the start, trying to avoid all of the goings-on. As we go down the back straight, I can use the straight line speed of my Porsche. It was a pretty damn quick car, one of the faster cars. Maybe not quite as fast as the Beetle. It was better handling than the Beetle, though. I, though, outbrake myself. The MR2 is on the inside through here. However, I've got so much speed in the Porsche, I can carry that around the outside of the next corner and keep hold of the position. Yeah, it was a busy opening lap again for me in trying to avoid all of the goings-on. The Sierra was also, I think, started a bit fair way back of the pack and was trying to make his way through in a very, very quick car. The Sierra was blooming fast around this track. You can see me in the background getting past another Sierra. There was a couple of Igos in this race. I think this was the only race we had Igos in. Igos are a tricky car to build and to race. I've used them a bit before. They're so short wheelbase. If you make them rear wheel drive, they are unbelievably twitchy. This one there was doing pretty well. However, the Sierra was simply better through the corners. It goes around the outside of the first part, which puts him on the inside for the next corner. Very good overtake, that one. Going around those two corners. The Igo then just runs a little bit wide and is in a bit of trouble from the Triumph that's having a look around the outside of the next corner. Don't really want to be going around the outside here. If you can do it, you've got enough acceleration, you could be on the inside for the final corner. However, the Igo is the quicker of the two, and there is very little that the Triumph can do. The Sierra carried on its march through the pack and was caught up to the back of second place in not very much time. Was going for the same manoeuvre again. This time didn't quite get it right. Just braked a little bit too late and ended up too wide through the first part, so he couldn't get to the inside on the next part. However, it was only going to be a matter of time before the Sierra found a way past, and it's again on the outside of the next corner. This is what the Triumph was trying last time around, and the Sierra manages to keep sort of well enough alongside through the corner and now has enough acceleration to get to the inside for the final corner. Unfortunately, Husky, who you can see in the lead at the moment, would disconnect a couple of laps later, not really sure why, and so that would be the pass that would put the Sierra in the lead. It's a bit of a shame that Husky disconnected. It would have been interesting to see how his Volvo fared against the Ford. Further back, there was an almighty battle over a position. I'm not entirely sure, sorry. Unfortunately, most of it I can't really show you because it's unbelievably laggy on my replays. You can see the Golf was jumping around. The MR2s were jumping around at some point as well. It's a bit of a shame. There was a good scrap over this position, whichever position it might be. I think it's around 8th or 9th or something. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, the servers are not being so helpful at the moment. I'm not entirely sure. The MR2s are off rallycrossing, which is fine. That's what they're from. They're from a rallycross challenge. At the front, and my Porsche was making its way through the order as well. I caught up to the back of the Starion. I was having a look around the outside at the end of the sort of the second straight. Realised I couldn't make it work, so I dived back for a cutback. Yeah, keep my car on the inside. Porsche was pretty good overall car, really. Had a lot of straight line speed. As I said, brakes weren't excellent. It was a little bit of a pain through the corners. The Starion was pretty damn good through the corner. Unlike the Sierra, that was fast through the corners and pretty good in the straights, my Porsche just struggled a little bit through these corners, so I haven't really dropped the Starion very much through here. The Starion thinks it's a little bit too far back, though, through these corners, because I've just got so much acceleration I can get away in between the corners so that I'm sort of out of danger. So towards the end of the race, again, the field on the most part split up. As I said, there was that group with the MR2s and such that unfortunately was lagging about a bit. The most exciting action that I could show you without the cars jumping and flying everywhere is between an Igo and the Triumph. These two had pretty much a race-long battle. At one point there was a little bit of I think it might have even been a laggy incident between the pair of them that put the Triumph off the road. The Triumph, though, caught up relatively quickly back to the Igo. The problem was it was having difficulties getting past because the Igo just had that acceleration. Overall, I think the Triumph actually was a little bit faster at the very end of the main straight, which you're about to see. The problem is the Igo had a lot more acceleration, and the Igo, being a very small and very light car, was very good on the brakes. So as they run onto the front straight, even though the Triumph has a better line, had a better run out of that corner, it can't do anything about the Igo. And it's not a huge gap, but the Triumph is a little bit too far back to have a big dive because the Igo is very, very good under braking. By the time they get to the end of the straight, I do think the Triumph actually starts to close a little bit, but it's too late to really be able to do anything about it, which means that, yeah, the Igo was proving to be pretty damn challenging to get past. At the front, though, the Sierra was to enjoy a relatively straightforward race. Once he got to the lead, did well to make his way through the field and get it, and then just drove away from the rest of us. I tried to chase it down, could do absolutely nothing about it. A little bit of lag as well on that. But yeah, the Sierra was to take the win. As I said, we'd love to have seen how it had compared to Husky's Volvo. Further back, these two continued for the last couple of laps with the Triumph trying to find a way past. Again, it just didn't quite have the acceleration of the Igo onto this back straight. However, the Igo goes very, very defensive, outbrakes himself a little bit, and runs very, very wide. The Triumph's on the inside, and this time he manages to get the move done, and while the Igo's accelerating quicker, there's nothing it can do about it, and the Triumph ends up getting 4th position. It wasn't to be the only close finish, though. This group of cars, there was to be 2 last lap overtakes, very almost 3 as they run into the final corner. The Golf does a cutback on the MR2 in front, while the Igo goes around the inside of the other MR2. The Igo also very, very nearly outdrags the red MR2. Had the start-finish line been much further down, it would have been an interesting finish between them two. So there we go. It was an interesting versus the community. There was lots of overtaking in this one, that's for sure. Unfortunately, yeah, lag was a little bit of a pain. It seems to be a more common theme lately. The Forza 4 servers are not being too kind to us. However, the next versus the community, we're staying on Forza 4 because while there is a little bit of lag on here, it's a hell of a lot better than trying to organise stuff on 5 because the lobbies and stuff are uselessly broken on there. So the next versus the community shall be on Thursday, the 27th of March. It shall be at 7 PM GMT. And what we are going to be doing, I can't remember how many weeks ago it is, but we did almost like a tuning competition, kind of, where we have one car and we're going to build it to A class this time, and we are going to be using a Saab 9.3 Aero. It's the 2002 Saab 9.3. We did this with Mustangs a while ago, and it produced some really, really good racing. So yeah, we're gonna give it a go with the Saab and see what happens. Who knows? Hopefully, we'll get plenty of good racing again. As the Mustangs were huge fun, so let's hope these are as well. If you wish to take part, then you can sign up on our forums. There'll be a link in the description. You go to the FailRace versus the community section, and the sign up thread will be in there. However, that is it for today, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.